The morgue smelled like bleach and death. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a pale, almost sickly hue on the metal gurneys. The young morgue attendant looked up from his clipboard when he heard the knock, a soft, rhythmic tapping. Strange. They never got visitors this late. He opened the door slowly, revealing a woman in a charcoal trench coat, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses and a hood pulled over her head. "Can I help you?" he asked. She removed the glasses. Green eyes. Piercing. Familiar. "I'm here to sign the final documents," she said softly. He blinked. "Sorry, you're here for?" "Evelyn Drake," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. The attendant fumbled with the clipboard, flipping through sheets. "Are you her sister?" She reached out, took the pen, and signed. "Emergency contact, Evelyn M. Drake." Signature, Evelyn M. Drake. He froze. "Yo, uh-huh." Evelyn met his gaze and gave a tight, haunting smile. "I'm not supposed to be." She turned, coat swirling behind her, and disappeared down the corridor, leaving the stunned attendant clutching a clipboard and questioning reality. The funeral was flawless. Too flawless. Jonas Drake stood at the podium in a sleek black suit, reading from a folded piece of paper. He dabbed fake tears from the corner of his eyes with a silk handkerchief. Evelyn was light in a dark world. A healer, a brilliant therapist. My wife. My everything. His voice cracked. He paused, swallowed hard. The crowd sobbed. He looked like a grieving husband. But Evelyn, watching from the shadows beyond the oak trees at the edge of the cemetery, knew better. He wrote that eulogy 2 weeks before she died. She had seen the file on his laptop, Evelyn Obituary _final.dkex. She knew the kind of man he was. Charming, calculated, cold. And yet, watching him now, she was momentarily stunned by how convincing he was. She nearly believed he missed her. Her phone vibrated in her coat pocket. A message from a burner account. Insurance claim file, $2 million. Processing. She smiled bitterly. Right on schedule. Jonas folded the paper, kissed her framed portrait, and stepped off the podium. The audience clapped. The coffin was closed. Because Jonas insisted she be cremated. Because he didn't want anyone noticing that the body inside wasn't hers. 3 weeks earlier, Evelyn had always known something was off. Jonas used to be attentive, affectionate, the kind of man who left sticky notes in her planner that said things like "kill the day, not me winking face." But lately, he was distracted, cold, busy on his laptop late at night, claiming it was consulting work. She wasn't nosy by nature, but something about his sudden interest in digital estate planning didn't sit right. One night, after he'd left for a supposed business dinner, Evelyn opened his laptop. He hadn't logged out. Bad move, Jonas. She opened a folder titled simply, ED. Inside were multiple Word documents. Obit_draft1.dkex. Obit_revised.dkex. Obit_final.dkex. Obit_final2.dkex. Her stomach turned. She clicked one open. Her name, her birth date, her alma mater, quotes about her professionalism, entire paragraphs about how Evelyn helped people see the light. Except she was very much alive, and Jonas had planned to say these words long before her actual death. She opened another doc. This one described her cause of death, sudden heart failure after a fall down the stairs. Another mentioned carbon monoxide poisoning. Another, an allergic reaction to shellfish. Different endings. Same result. He wasn't planning a eulogy. He was planning her death. She closed the laptop, breathing ragged. Everything spun. That night, she didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling while Jonas snored beside her, dreaming of a world without her in it. The next day at her clinic, Evelyn sat across from a patient named Margot. A wiry woman with fiery red hair and eyes that never settled. Margot had always been off. Not dangerous, but fragmented. "I had the dream again," Margot whispered. "The one with the mirror and the fire." Evelyn nodded gently. What did you see this time? Margot tilted her head. The man with the hollow smile. He was writing something. A story, with an ending he didn't own. Evelyn blinked. And who was he writing about? Margot's eyes focused for the first time that session. You. Evelyn's spine straightened. Margot leaned forward. He's planning it like a novel. Every detail. Every beat. And you're the final chapter. Goosebumps crawled across Evelyn's skin. Margot, this man. Who is he? But Margot only smiled and tapped her temple. I don't know his name. But he's very proud of his ending. The session ended soon after. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Margot knew more than she let on. Back in her office, she recorded a voice memo. Patient expressed unusual insight. Reference to storyline of death. Possibly a projection. Or a warning. That night, Evelyn searched Jonas's browser history. Not paranoid, just cautious. She found searches like cyanide symptoms. How long does it take to show signs of poisoning? Undetectable poisons in tea. And a bookmarked site, insurequicklife.com, $2 million spouse term policy. Her hand shook as she closed the browser. She was no longer wondering if he planned to kill her. Now she was wondering when. Her birthday dinner was suspiciously perfect. Jonas made her favorite meal, lemon pepper salmon with mashed rosemary potatoes. He even played her favorite vinyl, Billie Holiday. Relax, he said, pouring her tea. You've been so tense lately. She watched the steam curl upward. Chamomile, sweet smelling. He pushed it toward her. One sip, for me. She smiled weakly. Later, I want to feed Pluto first. Pluto, their tabby cat, meowed by the counter. Evelyn crouched, setting down her plate. But instead of the food, she dipped a spoon into the tea and let a few drops drip into the milk bowl. Pluto drank eagerly. Jonas was watching her too closely, too carefully. Minutes later, Pluto let out a low growl, then collapsed. Jonas jumped. What the hell? Evelyn rushed over, pretending to panic. Oh my God, is he having a seizure? Jonas crouched beside the cat, muttering. It was fine a second ago. What did he eat? I don't know, she said, grabbing the tea and pouring it into the sink. It could have been the milk. But she knew better. That tea was meant for her. Later that night, she stood in the bathroom, toothbrush in hand, staring into the mirror. He tried to kill me, she whispered. Not in theory, not in planning, in action. She spit into the sink and opened her drawer. Inside, a flash drive, her backup therapy recordings, her own notes, her suspicions, and a plan that was beginning to write itself. She returned to the bedroom. Jonas was already asleep. She looked at him, the man she once loved, the man who wrote her obituary before her death. Tomorrow, he would wake up to an empty bed, and the beginning of his own haunting. Evelyn sat alone in her office. The air was too still. The silence, deliberate. She clicked record on the camcorder propped on the bookshelf. Evelyn, to camera. If you're watching this, I'm already dead, to him. But I'm not gone. She inhaled slowly. I was a therapist for 15 years. I helped people uncover their trauma, unpack their grief, and most importantly, recognize danger, especially when it smiles at you from across the dinner table. A small laugh escaped her lips. It was humorless. My husband, Jonas Drake, has been planning my murder for at least 6 months. He's careful, obsessive, but he's also arrogant. That's where he slipped. She lifted a flash drive into view. This contains voice memos, browser history, drafts of my obituary, all before my death. And this is the beginning of my revenge. She stood, walking to her assistant's desk outside. Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks, Evelyn said. Her assistant blinked. Dr. Drake, is everything okay? Evelyn smiled, her eyes darker than usual. I just need some time off the grid. Tell anyone who asks that I've gone to a silent retreat. That night, she left her phone in a trash bin downtown and boarded a rideshare to a private rehab facility she had once referred patients to, under a false name, with cash in hand. Jonas would wake tomorrow to an empty bed and a clear path to collect. She would let him think he'd won. Jonas stood in front of the mirror, fixing his tie. He looked like a widower. Grief looked good on him. He buttoned his jacket and smiled at his reflection. $2 million, he whispered. Clean, elegant, done. He drove to the insurance firm with a perfectly forged death certificate and cremation confirmation from the clinic, paid for in cash by Evelyn before she died. Everything lined up. The agent, a tired woman in her 50s, nodded through most of the conversation. But one line caught her attention. Agent, the timestamp on the death certificate submission is 3:16 a.m. That's unusually early. Jonas, quickly. She passed in her sleep. I couldn't bear the thought of waiting. The agent gave a sad smile. Grief makes us do strange things, Mr. Drake. But she typed a note on her screen. Timestamp odd. Investigate. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in a white-walled room at the rehab center, watching the rain smear across the window. A nurse passed by, nodding politely. No one recognized her. No one knew her name, except one woman, her former colleague, Dr. Alyssa Monroe, now the facility's director. You're really going through with this? Alyssa asked, voice low. Evelyn nodded. I let him write my ending. Now I'm taking the pen back. Jonas read the morning paper with his usual smug detachment. Front page, City Honors celebrated therapist Evelyn Drake. A tribute piece. Glowing reviews. A picture of her mid-speech. He folded it and tossed it aside. The phone buzzed. It was the insurance agent again. Agent, on phone. Mr. Drake, I need confirmation of the crematorium's location. The clinic listed isn't in our directory. Jonas, they use a private partner. Subcontracted. Rural. She hesitated. We'll need the name. Jonas exhaled. I'll get it to you. He hung up and threw the phone across the room. Too many questions. Back at the rehab center, Evelyn scrolled through an encrypted burner phone, watching Jonas's public moves like a ghost watching her own haunting. Her disguise was simple. Hair dyed auburn, glasses, and no makeup. The world was full of average-looking women. She checked into a fake name at the front desk, Claire Winters. Meanwhile, Jonas updated her life insurance claim with falsified cremation papers. As far as the world knew, Evelyn Drake no longer existed, until the postcard arrived. Jonas retrieved his mail like any other day, bills, ads, condolence cards. Then, a plain white postcard. No return address. He flipped it over. Written in sharp black ink. Nice obituary. Shame about the ending. He stayed at it. His breath caught in his throat. He rushed to the living room and turned on the news. Still dead. No sightings. No reports. No one alive except him knew she might be alive. Except the handwriting. It was hers. The way she crossed the T's with a little hook. The slight upward tilt of the E. He checked the envelope again. Postmarked from within the city. This isn't possible. He tore up the postcard and burned the pieces in the sink. But the message lingered in his mind like a whisper behind his shoulder. That night, he set up cameras around the house. Every hallway, every door. He slept with a crowbar beside his bed. He told himself it was paranoia. But in his gut, he knew she wasn't dead. And she was watching. 3 nights later, Jonas sat in the living room, watching old tapes of Evelyn's therapy lectures. The tape started normally, her voice calm, instructive. Then the video cut to static. Then, her voice returned. Evelyn, on tape. Jonas, are you sleeping well? He bolted upright. She wasn't talking to a class. She was talking to him. Evelyn, on tape. Do you still dream about the tea? The screen flickered. Her face appeared, but it was a different background, recent, maybe even recorded in the last week. Her eyes were calm, like a lioness circling her prey. Evelyn, on tape. You always thought you were the writer of this story, but you never learned to read between the lines. Then the tape ended. Jonah scrambled for the remote, checked the label, 2007 Mental Health Conference. She had overwritten the tape. How? When? Suddenly, a knock. He whipped his head toward the window. Outside, a shadow moved past the hedges. He grabbed the crowbar and charged toward the door. Nothing. He turned on the floodlights. Nothing. He checked the cameras. Nothing. Except one frame on the back porch camera. A coat. Her coat. Hanging from the clothesline. He hadn't seen that coat in months. He burned it after the funeral. Didn't he? He didn't sleep that night. And for the first time in years, Jonas Drake was afraid in his own house. Jonas couldn't sleep. The creak of wood, the buzz of security cameras, Evelyn's voice on the tape kept replaying in his head. Do you still dream about the tea? Each night brought a new torment. This time, it was the back door, ajar. He followed the draft to the porch. Nothing. Then he saw her, a figure at the edge of the woods. Long coat, hair loose. Huh. Evelyn, he whispered. No answer. She turned and stepped deeper into the trees. Jonas grabbed a flashlight and followed, adrenaline drowning reason. Twigs snapped underfoot. Branches clawed at his face. Stop, Evelyn. The figure kept moving, slow, ghost-like. He sprinted. Closer, closer. He reached for her shoulder. His hand closed on stiff fabric. The body collapsed forward. Mannequin. A wig. Her coat. Her perfume. He screamed. Laughter echoed behind him, distant, taunting. He spun in circles with the flashlight, but the trees were silent again. Back at the house, a new note was taped to the front door. This story isn't yours to end. The next morning, Jonas stormed into the local precinct. I need to report a stalking. No, a break-in. She's alive. Evelyn is alive. The officer at the front desk raised an eyebrow. Sir, I was at her funeral. It wasn't her body, he insisted. She faked it. I have proof. She left me messages. Like what? A tape, a mannequin, a coat I burned, and a postcard. Any fingerprints? Jonas hesitated. The officer smirked. Mr. Drake, grief can do strange things. I suggest you get some rest. Check the cameras. We'll file a report, he said, but made no move to do so. Jonas left, furious and shaking. He drove straight to the funeral home and demanded to see the records. The mortician, Harold, hesitated before unlocking the cabinet. Well, that's odd, he muttered. You requested cremation, but we still have the cremation ID tag. It was never attached to a body. Jonas turned pale. What do you mean? Harold showed him the log. Tag printed, tag returned, but no actual record of incineration. Jonas grabbed the tag. It read ED 47399. She never burned, he whispered. Frantic, Jonas returned to Evelyn's old storage unit. She kept therapy records there, case files going back a decade. He broke in with bolt cutters, dust, cardboard, filing cabinets, thousands of documents labeled alphabetically. He tore through the drawers until he found one labeled D. Drake Jonas. He opened it. Inside were thick notes, labeled and color-coded. Narcissistic personality disorder, manipulative behavior patterns, evidence of gaslighting, risk to self and others. There were pages of transcribed conversations, voice notes, emotional patterns, and at the bottom, a psychological profile signed and certified by Evelyn. Jonas Drake, diagnosed, narcissistic sociopath with violent tendencies. His vision blurred. She diagnosed me. He tossed the folder across the floor. Beneath it was a small envelope. Inside, a flash drive. He plugged it into his laptop. Video file. Jonas_confession_prep. Evelyn's face appeared on screen, seated at her office desk. Evelyn, to camera. If you're watching this, Jonas, you found what I wanted you to find. She smiled slightly. I've studied you for years. Every time you lied. Every time you plotted. Every time you rehearsed your grief. She leaned closer. I saw you long before you saw me. The video cut to black. A week passed. Jonas barely ate, barely slept. He returned from a grocery run to find a small brown package on the doorstep. No name, no postage. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, his original obituary for Evelyn, but now it had a signature at the bottom. Evelyn M. Drake, dated yesterday. His heart pounded. He flipped the paper over. A sticky note was attached. What kind of man writes a eulogy before the murder? He tore the paper, shredded it into pieces, then froze. The front window. Someone was standing across the street, behind the neighbor's car. He stormed outside. Evelyn. No one. He paced, breathing hard. Suddenly, his laptop buzzed. Calendar alert. Therapy session, 8 p.m. office. He hadn't set that. At 8 p.m. sharp, Jonas entered his office building. The lights were on inside. That wasn't normal. He hadn't been there in weeks. He stepped in slowly, the crowbar gripped in one hand. Evelyn, he called. Silence. Until the door shut and locked behind him. He spun around. She was there, seated in his desk chair. Alive. Composed. Unshaken. Her voice was calm. Welcome to your final session. Jonas backed away. You're dead. She smiled. You tried, but I've always been 5 steps ahead. He lunged forward, raising the crowbar. Click. She pressed a button. Red light on. Recording in progress. Jonas froze. She pulled out a vial. Do you recognize this? Mild truth serum. Nothing dangerous. Just enough for clarity. He backed up, shaking. This is illegal. So is attempted murder, she replied. Let's begin. She stepped closer. He swung. Missed. She jabbed his neck with the syringe. Within seconds, he was blinking fast, breath shallow. She pulled out her MIC. Evelyn, state your name. Jonas, drowsy. Jonas Drake. Evelyn, did you plan to kill me? Jonas, blinking. Yes. Evelyn, why? Jonas, you were worth more dead. The insurance. I was bored. Evelyn, and how long were you planning it? Jonas, 8 months. Since your license renewal. She smiled coldly. Good, she said. Now let's talk about your mistress. Jonas sat slumped in the chair, pupils dilated, his voice slow and dreamlike, but painfully honest. The truth serum was doing its job. Evelyn, tell me everything. Jonas, raspy. She was younger. Her name was Sabrina. From the gym. You were always working, always fixing people. She was easy. And stupid. Evelyn, you manipulated her. Jonas, she thought I was leaving you. I told her we needed money to start fresh. I said you were sick. Dangerous. Evelyn blinked slowly. The monster she once married was unraveling in front of her. Evelyn, how did you plan to kill me? Jonas chuckled darkly. There were options. Tea, of course. Or a stay for. Maybe fire. But cyanide was poetic. Quick. Beautiful. Even. Evelyn's stomach churned. Evelyn. And when? Jonas. Your birthday. It had symmetry. I already had the documents lined up. She turned the camera to face him. His confession was crystal clear. He blinked. This isn't legal. Evelyn leaned close. I'm not here to prosecute you, Jonas. I'm here to bury you. She ended the recording and uploaded it to an encrypted cloud server. The settings were clear. Upload in 24 hours unless manually cancelled. Evelyn walked out of the office and into the night, laptop in hand, heart pounding, but not from fear, from control. Jonas stumbled after her, but the serum had weakened him. He collapsed on the floor, groaning. She didn't look back. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft, deliberate. She climbed into her car and pulled up the auto-upload settings. File name, Jonas_Drake_confession.mp4. Scheduled release, 24A, password locked, auto-send to. Police, news outlets, medical board. She smiled. You wanted a legacy, Jonas. You'll get one. She pulled away from the building, disappearing into the wet night. Inside, Jonas dragged himself to the couch, sweat pooling at his brow. He fumbled for his phone, tried to call Sabrina. Voicemail. He called the insurance agent. Voicemail. He screamed and smashed his phone. The only sound was the hum of the upload countdown ticking forward. He knew 24 hours from now, he'd be done. Unless he found her. It was raining hard the next morning. Jonas was halfway through detoxing from the serum, still groggy, when the knock came. Boom, boom, boom. He peeked through the peephole. 2 officers. Plainclothes. Serious. He opened the door, trying to fake calm. Officer 1. Mr. Drake, we have a warrant to search the premises. Jonas. What? On what grounds? Officer 2. Anonymous tip. Claims of attempted insurance fraud and poisoning. Jonas froze. They moved past him. In the kitchen, they found the bottle of cyanide. In the drawer, 2 forged cremation documents. Officer 1. Sir, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Jonas screamed. She's alive. It was her. She set me up. Officer 2. We saw the body, Mr. Drake. Jonas thrashed. IT wasn't her. But his wrists were cuffed, and the countdown to upload was still ticking. 1 week later, same chapel, same flowers, different coffin. This time, Jonas Drake was the one being mourned. The official story: suicide by overdose in police custody. No one cried. Not even Sabrina. She had vanished, her name erased from every record Evelyn touched. Inside the chapel, mourners whispered about the doctor's death and the husband's guilt. But one person wasn't whispering. She stood at the very back, hat pulled low, lips red. Evelyn, watching. She stared at the closed coffin, then at the printed program. On it, a photo of Jonas. But in the reflection of the glass, her own face, faint but unmistakable. Alive, cold, victorious. After the service, she left the chapel and stepped into the waiting black car. The driver didn't speak. She looked out the window as they drove away. Dead men write no stories, she whispered. 6 months later, a quiet town, a small therapy practice, a new name on the sign: Claire W. Monroe, trauma specialist. Inside, the office is light, warm, inviting. Books on grief and survival. A purring cat curled on the windowsill. Evelyn, now Claire, sat at her desk, writing notes in a new journal. The door opened. A new client stepped in. Young man. Nervous. He paused. You look familiar. Evelyn smiled, calm and measured. I get that sometimes. He's Saturday I've been having nightmares. About death. And justice. She nodded. You've come to the right place. She clicked her pen. Let's begin. The camera lingers on her eyes, no longer afraid, no longer hunted. The therapist who died and rose again. She was never gone. She was just getting ready.